From there, we cut to Chicago sometime later at KSI headquarters. As in the original movie, we are introduced to the company through the POV of its CEO, Joshua Joyce. There to greet him this time around, instead of the relative non-character Darcy, is Harold Attinger and James Savoy. Gentlemen, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? Business, not pleasure, Mr. Joyce. Ah, but to me, business is pleasure. We need more weapons. Better weapons. Are the ones I gave you insufficient? Our mutual benefactor assured me that they'd work splendidly. They did, against lesser targets. We're hunting bigger game now. We need appropriate equipment. What kind of bigger game are we talking about? Optimus Prime. Joyce gets a glint in his eye. Gentlemen, I have exactly what you need. Walk with me. He leads them through the main building to a hidden elevator. Along the way, we see the construction of Cybertronic rifles, grenades, and more heavy ordnance. Joyce presses his palm against a panel, and an elevator opens up. What I am about to show you, Mr. Attinger, is my pride and joy. The reason I made KSI in the first place. You see, replicating the Transformers technology was one thing. Painfully simple once I got my hands on their fuel, Energon. But I had forgotten something important. Their greatest technology is themselves. The elevator stops and he leads them into a massive underground facility. Collecting their corpses from the bottom of the ocean and from the samples your team has sent me allowed us to more fully study and understand them. Though of course we had help. We melted them down and repurposed their parts, together with some parts of our own, into these. They enter a large room where several man-made transformers are under construction. Savoy and Attinger look on in awe. What's better than being able to control their weapons? What about being able to control them? This one right here is based off of the little yellow one. I call him Stinger. And this one over here, inspired by that one female. I call her Nightbird. Basic soldier units, modeled after those, what were they called? Viacons, that's the word. Bruisers as well, inspired by the big guy, Ironhide. Main one there is Breakdown. Excellent vanguard units. And every military needs an air force. Fortunately, one of Starscream's cousins was on hand, the purple one, shot down in the Battle of Chicago, his corpse never retrieved by his fellows. A perfect blueprint for our own take on the Seeker Armada. This blue one right here is their main prototype. I call him Jetstorm. How many of these prototypes do you have? 100 units are complete, with twice as many well on the way. Very impressive, Mr. Joyce. You built a veritable army down here. But being ex-military yourself, you know that any army is useless without its commander. Come, let me show you my magnum opus. He beckons them into a room at the back of the facility. They go into the lab proper, where a large dome sits in the center. Contained within that dome is a familiar figure, the damaged, but mostly intact form of Wheeljack. Remember I mentioned we had help? Here's the help. One of the two greatest scientists on Cybertron, if you can believe it. We've been picking his mind to help us build our army. Between him and the stunning amount of knowledge our Benefactor has, well, we have all we need to build a transforming robot army of our own. Please, he's a madman. Let me out. You'll get no pity from us, Autobot. Gentlemen, allow me to present to you the crown jewel of my creations, the designated commander of my army. Patterned off of schematics of both factions' leaders, I give you Nemesis Prime. Lights illuminate a massive figure, shaped similarly to Optimus, yet with some distinct design cues from Sentinel as well, who Joyce incorrectly identified as the Decepticons' leader. Black and gray in color with teal highlights, greatly resembling Scourge from RID-01, stands Nemesis Prime. Attinger's lips curl into a wicked half-smile. Perfect. This is exactly what we need to face Optimus Prime. Of course, he's still in the prototype stage. I have yet to test him. We are at war, Mr. Joyce. We need all our assets at the ready. Prepare Nemesis Prime for deployment. But he hasn't been... Consider this the test. Now serve your country. Hesitantly, Joyce begins the activation sequence for Nemesis Prime. Red lights glow in his chest, soon joined by the activation of his eyes. Now, the reason I decided to do Nemesis Prime instead of Galvatron is because when you have a story whose plot revolves around humans making their own Transformers, and the main human inventor has wanted to base the leader of his man-made Transformers off of Optimus Prime, why not go with the infamous clone of Optimus Prime, Nemesis Prime? He's an incredibly popular character, an incredibly interesting character, and one who's sadly underutilized. He would have been a far better pick for the leader of the KSI drones, in my humble opinion, than a reskinned Megatron being given the name of Galvatron? A name that was originally given to Megatron by Unicron? It's kind of strange that the humans came up with a name that sounds so similar to Megatron when they're trying to base their creation off of Optimus Prime. And Nemesis Prime is exactly the kind of name that a human inventor would come up with. We cut back to the Autobots, who are nearing the KSI building. Much like in the original film, they plan to send Cade in to scout around disguised as an employee, accompanied by Bumblebee, under the guise of being a vehicle for scanning, which Cade is unsure of what that means, while Optimus, Prowl, Bulkhead, Drift, and Hot Rod remain in disguise nearby. Now, while I did laugh at the scene where B freaks out at the Stinger prototype, such an outburst would be out of character for Bumblebee as I have portrayed him, which is fairly mellow. Now, I do want B and Stinger to have a rivalry, but that will start later. This was a very funny scene, but it did distract from the plot, so I will be eschewing it. Plus, it was a little confusing that they already had a Stinger prototype on display. The film suggested that the construction of the KSI Transformers is a relatively recent development, one they've been working at for a while but have only recently finalized. So the fact that they not only have a prototype on display but also have an ad campaign made for it seemed a tad goofy. This is a nitpick, I will admit, but it is something that bothered me. Besides, I want KSI to be a bit less Steve Jobs and a bit more LexCorp. I want to emphasize just how dark the creation of the KSI bots is. They're born from the melted carcasses of dead Decepticons and now 4 Autobots. This is essentially Frankenstein for Transformers, and I'm talking Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, not Hollywood's. Kinda like the Viacons and Beast Machines, now I think about it. Oh hey, Jetstorm's here too. One of the few concepts in the show that I actually liked. As in the original movie, Cade makes his way into the main lab and sees Ratchet's body being melted down, a sight that, when transmitted through the drone camera, nearly sends Optimus into a rage. His engine revs and it takes all of his self-control to not burst in and go into a rampage. Prowl and Bulkhead shift into gear as if ready to attack at Prime's order. As Cade continues his scouting, he sees the giant glass dome. Optimus, this guy a friend of yours? Wheeljack. He's alive. Orders, sir. Hot Rod, Bulkhead, distract the guards. Bumblebee, see if you can access a freight elevator to get down to Cade's level. Tessa, remain here and wait for your father and Bumblebee. Prowl, you're with me. We storm the back by the garage. Drift. Before Optimus has finished his orders, Drift has already mobilized. He's going to be pretty similar to animated Prowl in how he does things. Before the other Autobots can implement Optimus' plan, Drift drives through the front door. Remember, he's a samurai, not a ninja. Well, more like a Ronin, actually, but that's beside the point. Drift has just witnessed something dishonorable, and he's going to pay that dishonor back and avenge his fallen brothers. And much like animated Prowl, he does it without consulting his commander. Drift is a character of intense emotion, and when that emotion gets the better of him, he can be quite impulsive. So Drift drives through the front door, causing the security guards and employees to scatter in terror. Drift! What the slag? Autobots, mobilize! Drift transforms and draws his swords. You will answer for this dishonor, humans. Send out your leader, so that he may stand judgment. Though Drift was opposed to Prowl's declaration of war at the Sanctuary, the desecration of the Autobot and Decepticon corpses, because, remember, he was a Decepticon at one point, he considered many of them to be his brothers as well, is a bridge too far. He's now confronted with dishonor on 2 fronts, and in his mind this latest crime is reason enough to no longer consider fighting back to be dishonorable. This isn't lashing out against a weaker foe anymore. It's paying back a dangerous enemy for something unforgivable. This is where Optimus and Drift differ in their philosophies. Prime believes that two wrongs never make a right and will only retaliate if he has no other option, never making the first strike. Drift believes that any wrongdoing you may be guilty of is washed out if your opponent is guilty of something worse. Prowl is less concerned about what is right and more about what is just and what is practical. To him, Cemetery Wind and KSI are dangerous. Thus, they need to be removed from the board entirely. Bulkhead is sick of hiding and would rather get rid of whatever is keeping him in hiding, but he's not going to go against Optimus on this. B still hopes that there can be a peaceful solution, and Rod doesn't know what to think. After all, he's still a rookie. Drift slashes his swords around at equipment on the main level, causing havoc but not harming any of the fleeing employees. He wants Joyce, Attinger, and Savoy, no one else.
Face me, you cowards! Drift, stand down.
Prime, Bulkhead, Hot Rod, and Prowl have now entered the building. Using the chaos as a distraction, Bumblebee makes his way down to the lower levels.
These desecrators must be made to pay, Optimus. You've received a direct order, soldier. Stand down. Is this not what you wanted, Prowl? What I want is inconsequential. You are disobeying your commanding officer.
Drift, not like this. Please. Drift looks at his compatriots in confusion. He lowers his swords just as Attinger, Joyce, and Savoy arrive from the elevator. Hey! This is private property. You are Drift levels one of his swords in Joyce's direction. Savoy only has his standard issue pistol on hand, useless against Autobots.
Is this charnel house you're doing?
Yes, this is my company.
Then the crime rests on your shoulders. Are you prepared to die? Sheath your weapons, Drift. Now!
During this standoff, B meets up with Cade, where Wheeljack is located.
Bumblebee? Is that you, or have I finally fried?
It's me, Wheeljack. Let's get you out of here. He aims his blaster at the glass and fires at it, freeing the wounded scientist. Come on. Prime and the others are waiting. Back up at the main level.
So, at last you Autobots show your true colors, eh, Prime? Drift.
Drift's brow settles and he sighs, sheathing his swords.
Consider yourselves fortunate, humans. My leader is more forgiving than I am.
He steps backwards and rejoins his team.
I am more forgiving. This is true. But what you have done here is unforgivable.
Yeah, so you told your attack dog to back down so you can fry us yourself?
There will be no more death today, human or Autobot. But this cannot be allowed to continue. The bodies of our fallen comrades will be returned to us, so that we may lay them to rest in the manner of our customs, and all Cybertronian weaponry will be incinerated. All conflict between our races will end, and we will leave each other in peace.
Unacceptable. This conflict will only end once each and every one of your kind are brought to justice for the deeds undertaken 5 years ago. Those responsible for the invasion are both dead. Or have you forgotten that we're the ones who saved your lives? Saved us? It was your fault the Decepticons attacked in the first place. Would they have come here if you hadn't? Back up a minute, Fleshy. Megatron landed here first. If Optimus hadn't been here, your planet would have been toast as soon as Megatron got his claws in the Allspark.
Or as soon as the Fallen had activated the Star Harvester.
Neither of which would have happened if your kind had never landed here. And who is it who sent the Allspark to Earth? That's right, Prime. I've read the nest logs.
Hold your tongue.
Prowl levels his blaster at Attinger, but Optimus raises a hand to stop him.
This conflict is over, Harold Attinger. I will not allow more of my kind or yours to fall because of your vendetta against us. This is not a negotiation. Return our brethren now.
It's too late for that. They've already been melted down. What we're doing here, it's bigger than any of us, than any of you. We're advancing technology by hundreds of years.
We are not your technology. They were my friends.
And now they're melted slag, just waiting to be repurposed.
If you will not surrender our fallen to us, then we will ensure that no more Autobots fall to your treachery. Autobots, destroy this weaponry.
As the employees have evacuated, the Autobots are able to turn their blasters on the abandoned workstations and surface labs. They render all complete and in-progress weapons useless slag. Optimus doesn't know about the existence of the KSI bots yet, as Nemesis Prime had been removed from the lab by the time Cade got there. By destroying all current prototypes, the Autobots believe that this will remove Cemetery Wind's fangs and end the threat, as they know nothing about the Benefactor, the KSI bots, or the secondary facility in China. Having heard Optimus's order over his comm, Bumblebee wrecks the lab, leaving behind what he thinks are just inert vehicles, as the KSI bots are all currently inactive and in vehicle mode. Bulkhead takes it a step further and destroys Attinger and Savoy's cars, along with an APC that was parked out back. This is in essence a false climax, at least to the Autobots. They think that this is the end, but the audience knows that it's only just begun. Because of course a true battle between humans and Autobots is never going to end in the humans' favor. Attinger glares at the Autobots.
This changes nothing. I will never stop hunting you. Do what you will. Autobots, roll out.
The Autobots leave, sending a signal to Bumblebee and Wheeljack, who have just picked up Tessa after leaving the factory. Attinger, Joyce, and Savoy take the elevator down to the second sublevel, the control station, where several KSI analysts are awaiting orders.
Mr. Joyce, what's happening? We heard explosions.
The Transformers are retaliating. Seems they don't appreciate us melting their buddies down.
It's time we teach Prime the error of his ways. Activate Nemesis Prime and his team.
Nemesis Prime online.
Stinger online.
Nightbird online.
Jetstorm online. Breakdown online.
The 5 named KSI bots mobilize and exit the garage area in pursuit of their targets. With the exception of Jetstorm, these bots mirror the original Team Prime. Nightbird, though feminine in robot mode, is closer to Jazz in vehicle mode. Stinger, naturally, is a near one-to-one of Bumblebee, while Breakdown is a bruiser, like Ironhide. The only character absent from the lineup is a medic, like Ratchet, replaced instead by a Starscream-like Seeker. As for why I chose to include Breakdown, it's because I like his and Bulkhead's rivalry in Transformers Prime and actually prefer him being separate from the Stunticons, with Off-Road or Breakneck taking his place. Mostly because I just love Transformers Prime. So these parallels with the original team are intentional, both by me and KSI, and the inclusion of a more Decepticon-coded character serves both to demonstrate that the cons were just as much victims as the bots, and to more match KSI and Cemetery Wind's MO. They wouldn't make a medic, as they don't see the robots as alive. Instead, they include another fighter, one with air superiority, a feature up until now exclusive to Decepticons outside of Jetfire, and, well, Whirl and Springer, but neither of them have fully featured yet, just been mentioned. These 5 pseudo-Autobots pursue the 5 that are currently driving away from the factory. Bumblebee and Wheeljack are a ways away still.
Optimus, 5 bogies in pursuit. Don't these humans ever give up? Try to lose them, Autobots. Activate their weapons.
Nemesis Prime, activating missiles. Nemesis Prime, much like Galvatron in the original film, opens up missile pods on either side of his truck form, which, much like his robot mode, looks like his form in RID-01. A very evil-looking tanker truck. He fires missiles at the road, which forces the Autobots to stop. This also demonstrates that Attinger does not care about collateral damage, as the road is heavily populated still. Joyce looks at him with shock. Though he's callous about the Autobots, he does still value human life. He's like a less psychotic Lex Luthor. Attinger does not notice.
Let's force their hands further. Transform.
Transformation sequence activated. The 5 KSI bots come to a stop. A familiar whirring sound comes from them as they begin to transform, and they actually transform. They don't just pixelate like in the original movie. That was lame. Anyway, they transform, revealing their robot modes. Decepticons? How'd they get here? From over the radio, Wheeljack's voice answers. Prime, come in, this is Wheeljack. The humans have a new trick up their sleeve. Replicas of us. What?
Our attackers are not Decepticons. They are man-made Cybertronians. Bossbot, that big one looks like me.
The Autobots transform, and Optimus Prime stares into the eyes of Nemesis Prime. Prowl faces Nightbird, Drift, Jetstorm, Bulkhead, Breakdown, and Hot Rod, Stinger.
Destroy them.
The KSI bots charge into action. Nemesis draws a sword and twirls it in a manner similar to how Sentinel always twirled his. Jetstorm flies directly at Drift. Nightbird draws 2 swords from her back. Breakdown transforms his hand into a hammer. Stinger activates his namesake, a last-minute addition to his arsenal as KSI only recently learned of Bumblebee's stingers. However, a focused beam of electrical energy is not too difficult to replicate. Stinger blasts, striking Hot Rod full on the chest before the young bot is even able to fire a shot, stunning him and knocking him out of the fight. Bumblebee hears the fighting on his comm and opens his doors, letting the humans out. Take them to the rendezvous coordinates, Wheeljack. The others need my help. He speeds off. Drift attempts to slash at Jetstorm, but he vanishes, reappearing behind the Samurai bot. It seems that Jetstorm has inherited Skywarp's teleportation abilities. He blasts Drift, sending the Autobot sprawling forwards. Unlike Hot Rod, however, Drift is still up. Breakdown and Bulkhead clash, Wrecking Ball against Hammer. Prowl is unused to close quarters combat, which is what Nightbird specializes in. He is forced to dodge her sword slashes and put some distance between the two of them so he can get a shot off. Optimus draws his axe and uses it to parry Nemesis' sword strikes. Stinger closes the distance between himself and Hot Rod, drawing his hand cannon and preparing to finish the incapacitated rookie off. Bumblebee drives into frame, transforming and tackling his clone. Stinger changes his target and faces off against Bumblebee. Attinger watches with a sick sort of amusement, seeing 3 of the 5 facing down against their intended counterparts. Only thing that would make it better is if RC and Jetfire were present. Joyce looks on in concern as people are forced to drive around the giant robot battle. It's clear that Prime is trying to move the fight off the road, but Nemesis and his team aren't giving him much room to maneuver. We also see that a combat program is active, putting the robots on autopilot instead of being controlled like drones or video game characters. This gives them semi-autonomy, though there is a manual option visible on the screen.
Excellent work, Mr. Joyce. Your prototypes are proving better than anticipated.
Joyce does not respond, unable to take his eyes off the screen. His fears are confirmed when Nemesis misses a strike against Optimus, and cleaves an approaching car in 2, eviscerating its occupants. Both Prime and Joyce are forced to watch in horror. Prime begins to fight back in earnest, allowing his rage to give him strength that his doppelganger lacks. He tackles Nemesis off the road into the grass.
You have no soul.
He attempts to slash at Nemesis' head, but the clone jams his sword into his chest. However, Prime's spark is protected by the Matrix. A burst of energy courses through the 2 of them as the Matrix attempts to protect both itself and its bearer. We watch the energy as it enters Nemesis Prime's inner workings. Behind the panel that serves as his chest, the energy coalesces into a pulsating sphere, accompanied by a sound that sounds eerily like a heartbeat. Nemesis Prime stumbles backwards as Optimus clutches his chest. The screen that controls Nemesis goes black, though the view screen shows that he is still intact. Images flash through Nemesis' mind, memories of Optimus Prime, but corrupted, distorted. He feels the anger that Optimus has hidden, anger towards the Decepticons, towards Attinger and Joyce, towards Sentinel, towards himself. He feels that nagging temptation that lurks at the back of every Prime's mind, that temptation to seize absolute power for himself, a temptation that Optimus has suppressed for millennia. He recalls Megatron's manifesto, Sentinel's justification for betraying the Autobots, the absolute terror that is the Fallen, and the lives of every Prime that has come before. And then, he sees a monstrous entity, planet-sized, consuming worlds to feed its never-ending hunger. Then the vision closes, and the clone glances down at himself, and then up at Optimus.
What am I?
Optimus, Joyce, and Attinger's eyes all widen.
Did it just speak?
That's impossible.
You are alive. I live. I think. I feel.
Optimus rises to his feet and approaches his clone.
What do you feel?
Nemesis looks around, still unused to the sensation of, well, being. The images flash through his head once more. Optimus's memories, the collective wisdom of the Primes, but distorted, dark, and twisted.
I feel hatred. I feel pain. I feel betrayal. I feel you, Optimus Prime. Yes, I have suffered much betrayal, much pain, and though I have sought to bury it, I still feel hatred. But that is not all I feel. It is all I feel. The darkness within your spark. The darkness you have denied. Darkness need not be all you feel. I can help you, teach you to see the good in the universe, in yourself.
Nemesis ponders Prime's words. In the background, the other Autobots are still locked in combat with their opponents. As Nemesis ponders, a screen opens on his HUD, similar to Lugnut's visions of Megatron in Transformers Animated, except this screen is dominated by a single pinpoint of yellow light staring out of darkness. Nemesis Prime, bring Optimus Prime to me, and I will show you your purpose.
Who are you?
I am your creator, your master.
Creator.
Bring him to me, and all will be answered. The screen vanishes, leaving a set of coordinates behind, and Nemesis Prime looks up at Optimus. He sheathes his sword, causing Optimus to lower his guard. However, he activates an EMP generator installed in his arm and strikes Prime full force with it. Optimus is rendered unconscious, dropping his axe. Nemesis summons his trailer and places Optimus inside it. He turns to his fellow KSI bots. He transmits a command code to them, one that overrides the signal from KSI HQ. They stop fighting the Autobots and turn to him. He transforms, and they follow suit, driving and jetting into the distance, leaving the battered and confused Autobots behind in the dust. Attinger and Joyce watch as their signal to the robots is severed.
What just happened?
They went rogue, somehow. What was that other transmission? The one that Nemesis Prime received just before stunning Prime?
That voice sounded familiar.
I'm trying to trace the transmission now, sir. While you do that, I'm having the remaining 95 prototypes moved to our secondary facility in Hong Kong and put under lockdown until we can figure out what caused these 5 to turn rogue. Great test, Mr. Attinger. You've cost us our best asset. He storms out of the room, getting his people on the phone. Attinger's eyes narrow and then widen as he realizes where he's heard the voice before.
That bastard. He was using us all along.
Who?
The Benefactor.
Wheeljack and the Jaegers arrive at the rendezvous point ahead of everyone else. It's not until near dusk when the rest of the Autobots arrive, an unconscious Hot Rod being carried in the back of Bulkhead's vehicle mode, and Optimus nowhere to be seen, just his axe being carried by Bumblebee. What happened? Where's Optimus?
He's not dead. No. That clone of his stunned him with an EMP and carried him off.
Back to KSI? No. Opposite direction.
It was weird. As soon as it captured Prime, it must have sent some signal to the others. They all took off, leaving the rest of us behind.
I wouldn't think Attinger would want to leave any loose ends.
He would not. He despises us with every fiber of his being.
Then, someone else is behind this. I have a sinking suspicion who. It wasn't just Joyce who was responsible for torturing me. He was in frequent communication with someone he called the Benefactor. This Benefactor knew things about our tech and our biology, things no human should know. He's the reason KSI were able to make those knockoffs. Do you have any idea who this Benefactor is, Wheeljack? I have a hunch. There's only one being in the whole universe who both knows our bodies inside and out, and is sick enough to have us melted down to make new soldiers. No, not him. Primus, please, anyone but him.